They won't tell you this. But the most irresistible women aren't the youngest or the prettiest. They're the ones who've seen themselves and stayed. They don't beg for love. They don't perform for attention. They embody a deeper truth, one that makes people lean in without knowing why. And once you understand these 6 habits, you'll never look at feminine power the same way again, because this isn't about charm. It's about energy, magnetic, quiet, unforgettable. It's the kind of presence that doesn't chase, it attracts. And no, it's not luck, it's psychology. Let me show you how it works. There is something magnetic about a woman who no longer seeks permission to exist. She walks into a room not to impress, but to express. Her energy whispers, "I know who I am." And people feel that before she even speaks. This is not confidence born from ego, but from alignment. An inner knowing that she has stopped betraying herself just to belong. Jung called this process individuation, becoming whole, not perfect. It's the journey of peeling back the masks we wear for love and approval. When a woman embraces her contradictions, her light and her dark, she becomes real. And in a world addicted to performance, realness is revolutionary. It's what makes people pause, drawn to her without knowing why. You can spot her by the way she holds herself, grounded, unhurried, present. She doesn't rush to fill silences or prove her worth, because she's no longer trying to earn space. She already claimed it. Every word she speaks carries weight, because it wasn't shaped to please. It was born from a deep place of self-recognition. Authenticity isn't loud. It's unwavering. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't beg to be understood. It stands tall in the middle of rejection, saying, "I'd rather be true than accepted." And that's where her power lives, in the refusal to dilute herself. Not everyone will like her, but no one will forget her. This kind of woman doesn't chase trends, she creates resonance. Her style, her tone, her decisions all mirror something deeper. She chooses with intention, even if it means standing alone. Because being divided inside is more painful than being isolated outside. She'd rather lose company than lose herself. Again, there's a sacred rebellion in wearing your truth out loud, in saying, "This is me, not perfect, but present," in refusing to smile just because it makes others comfortable. She knows that being polite at the cost of her soul is too expensive, so she speaks with clarity and lives without apology. Sometimes, authenticity looks like crying in public. Sometimes it's walking away from a table where love isn't served. Other times, it's staying quiet when the world demands noise. Whatever it is, it always honors one rule: no self-abandonment. Because she's done breaking herself to fit into small places. She keeps a journal not to remember events, but to remember herself. She asks, "Was that decision mine? Or did fear choose it for me?" She notices when her tone shifts to be accepted, and when it does, she gently returns to her voice. That's how she protects her soul from erosion. Her authenticity doesn't mean she's unchanging, quite the opposite. It means she evolves on her own terms. She lets herself outgrow people, places, even versions of herself, because growth without alignment is just noise, and she's not interested in noise, only meaning. Sometimes people misread her silence as distance, but she's not distant, she's discerning. She doesn't overshare just to fill space. She speaks when her words are ripe with intention. That's how she stays connected to herself while relating to others. In relationships, she doesn't twist herself into someone's fantasy. She's done playing the role of the good girl. Now she's just real, even if that makes things uncomfortable. She'd rather trigger someone's truth than be loved for a lie. Because she knows authenticity invites transformation. People often ask, "How do I become like her?" But it's not something you become. It's something you stop hiding. The version of you that's magnetic is already inside. She's just buried under layers of conditioning and fear, and every honest choice is a step toward uncovering her. True authenticity is felt before it's seen. It's the kind of energy that lingers in a room after she's gone. Not because she tried to be unforgettable, but because she was fully there. And that presence, that soul-deep presence, is what makes her irresistible. But presence is just the beginning, because authenticity, when fully embodied, becomes a force. It shapes reality, attracts truth, and repels everything that lacks soul. It's not just a habit, it's a way of being. And once a woman chooses it, she doesn't go back, because the cost of pretending is too high for someone who's tasted freedom. There is a quiet elegance in the woman who knows what she feels and why. She doesn't fear her anger or hide her sadness behind a smile. She lets emotions rise like waves but doesn't drown in them, because she's learned the secret. Emotions are messengers, not masters. And wisdom begins when you dare to listen. Jung taught that what we repress doesn't disappear. It waits in the shadow. So she stopped burying her rage, her envy, her grief. Instead, she brings them to the light, gently asking, "What do you need to say?" This is not weakness. It's deep psychology in motion. Integration, not suppression, is the path to inner peace. She no longer judges her emotions as good or bad. They are data points, not moral verdicts. When she feels hurt, she doesn't pretend. She names it, "I'm hurt because I felt unseen," and in naming it, she reclaims her power. Emotional intelligence is not about smiling through pain. It's about facing your inner weather without denial. She knows that storms are sacred. They clear the air. So she doesn't fake calm. She becomes calm through awareness, and this awareness makes her magnetic. She practices the pause, that golden space before reaction. Someone lashes out, she breathes, she reflects. Because reactivity is a trap that chains you to the past. And she's not here to repeat patterns. She's here to evolve. So she chooses her responses like a sculptor chooses her tools. In conversations, she doesn't dominate, she attunes. She senses shifts in tone, reads beneath words. Because she's not listening to reply, she's listening to feel. And when she speaks, it lands like truth wrapped in velvet. Her emotional clarity makes others feel safe to unfold. Her self-talk is not a battlefield anymore. She caught herself once saying things to herself she'd never say to a friend. Now, she offers compassion inward, especially when she messes up. Because perfection is a myth, but emotional resilience is real. And resilience grows where kindness takes root. There are days when the grief feels heavy, old, ancestral. She doesn't run from it. She sits with it, holds space, because she understands. Some emotions are not hers alone. They're echoes passed down, and she's the one breaking the cycle. That's why healing is her quiet rebellion. Her boundaries are shaped by emotional clarity. She doesn't say yes to avoid guilt or no to punish. She asks, "Is this aligned with my peace?" And if it's not, she bows out with grace. Because peace is not passive, it's fiercely protected. She's unafraid of emotional intimacy, not just with others, but with herself. She looks herself in the mirror and doesn't flinch, even on the messy days, the uncertain days. Because she's built a home inside that doesn't collapse under emotion. That home is her wholeness, shadow and all. She teaches others how to treat her without saying much, not by lecturing, but by modeling. Her calm is not an act, it's earned. And when people try to trigger her, they find nothing to grip. Because she's rooted, not reactive, there's power in her tears and more in her laughter. She doesn't suppress emotion to seem strong. She embraces it, flows with it, and moves through it. And that's what makes her strength undeniable. Not the absence of emotion, but its mastery. She doesn't numb with distractions. She feels, she processes, she releases. Sometimes that means crying alone in the car. Sometimes it's dancing out frustration in her kitchen. But she always chooses presence over avoidance. Because a woman who owns her emotional world cannot be manipulated. She doesn't get pulled into guilt traps or emotional blackmail. She recognizes the game, but refuses to play it. Her clarity disarms confusion, her peace dissolves control, and her presence becomes a mirror that reveals truth. There is something magnetic about a woman who knows where she's going. She doesn't move fast, she moves with purpose. While others scatter, chasing approval, she walks her own quiet path. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. And in that truth, she becomes unmistakably radiant. Jung believed our soul carries a hidden direction, a telos. It's not a goal, but a gravitational pull toward wholeness. The woman aligned with her telos doesn't need external validation. Her life hums with coherence, even in chaos. Because purpose isn't a destination, it's a rhythm she walks by. This kind of woman doesn't live by default. She lives by design. She says no often, not out of fear, but clarity. She's curated her life like a sacred garden, pulling the weeds. Each choice is deliberate, echoing her inner compass. She's no longer afraid of disappointing others, only herself. Clarity of purpose makes her presence commanding, not loud, not demanding, but centered. She enters a room with the calm of someone who knows why she's here. And that energy is rare in a world addicted to confusion, rare and irresistibly grounding. She wakes up asking, what would align me today? Not what should I do, but what feeds my soul? Because success without alignment feels hollow. She'd rather be unknown and fulfilled than praised and empty. That's the sacred standard she lives by. When life feels noisy, she returns to the map within. She doesn't let urgency dictate her direction. She listens for the subtle pull, the yes that lives in her chest. And when she follows it, synchronicities bloom, because clarity invites the universe to respond. She tracks her energy like a scientist tracks data. What drains her? What ignites her? She uses that information to reorient her life. Not everything that's offered deserves a yes. And not every invitation is a calling. She doesn't chase, she magnetizes. Because her purpose is like a frequency, calling what resonates. People feel it, opportunities feel it, even silence feels sacred around her, because she's not waiting, she's embodying. There's a power in knowing your non-negotiables, in saying, this is what I stand for, this is who I am. She's walked through enough confusion to earn this clarity. And now she doesn't flinch when asked to choose. She's already chosen, long before the question came. Even her pain has been integrated into purpose. She knows that suffering without meaning breeds despair, so she alchemizes it, transforming wounds into wisdom. She doesn't avoid the hard lessons, she minds them, because her path isn't made of comfort, but of meaning. She doesn't multitask her soul, she focuses, she devotes, she deepens. While others are busy being busy, she's busy becoming. Her time is sacred, and she treats it that way. That's how purpose becomes a lifestyle, not a performance. People often ask her, how are you so clear? She smiles. Why? Because it wasn't always like this. She once lived in fog, in obligation, in autopilot, until one day her soul whispered, there's more. And she listened. That's where it all changed. Now everything she does carries the scent of intentionality, from the way she speaks to the way she rests. Even her pauses are purposeful, because clarity isn't just knowing what to do, it's knowing when to be still. And in that stillness, her next step always appears. But purpose isn't static, it evolves. She honors that by staying attuned, staying available to her own unfolding. Because the moment we stop listening, we start drifting. And she's done drifting. She's here to embody direction, not just admire it from afar. She no longer confuses love with sacrifice. Not every request deserves a yes. Not every closeness means connection. Because now she knows real intimacy starts with self-respect. And that means honoring her edges, not erasing them. Jung taught that when the persona dominates, the self disappears. She lived like that once, smiling, nodding, pleasing, until she realized her soul was shrinking in the name of harmony. Now she sets boundaries not to punish, but to protect, because self-betrayal is no longer an option. Saying no used to feel like failure, like she was being mean or selfish. But now she sees it differently. It's self-loyalty. Every no to others is a yes to her truth, and that shift rewrote her entire story. She doesn't over-explain herself anymore. No is a full sentence, not cold, just clear. Because over-justifying often masks fear of rejection, and she's not afraid of being misunderstood to stay whole. People test boundaries, consciously or not, and she lets them, but she also lets them face the consequences. Because teaching others how to treat her is not a lecture, it's a pattern. And she chooses her patterns with care. She notices when she starts editing herself, when her voice softens to avoid conflict. That's her cue to pause and ask, am I betraying myself right now? It's not about drama, it's about dignity. She refuses to abandon herself in conversation. Her silence is no longer passive. Sometimes the most powerful boundary is simply not engaging. She's learned that not everything deserves her response. Some things dissolve in the absence of attention. That's emotional intelligence in motion. When someone violates her boundary, she doesn't explode. She states it, once calmly. And then she observes, because people show you who they are by how they handle your limits. And she watches with quiet clarity. She doesn't chase closure anymore. If a connection ends when a boundary is set, so be it. She doesn't beg to be kept. Because if the cost is self-erasure, the price is too high. And she's already paid it in the past. She surrounds herself with people who respect the no, not to. Just tolerate it, honor it. Because in safe spaces, boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to deeper connection. That's the kind of intimacy she seeks now. There's beauty in restraint, in saying, I could, but I won't. Because maturity isn't doing everything, it's choosing wisely. And wisdom often sounds like silence, space, or walking away. She's mastered that sacred restraint. Boundaries gave her back her time, her energy, her clarity. She's no longer exhausted from overgiving. Now she gives from overflow, not depletion. And people feel the difference in her presence. She no longer fears being called too much or too distant, because she knows exactly where she ends and others begin. That clarity feels like peace, not punishment, and it's what makes her unshakable. She holds herself so no one else has to, and with every line she draws in love, not fear, she teaches the world how to love her right. Because boundaries aren't barriers, they're invitations to meet her truth, and those who accept get to witness the real her. But before they do, she'll need to know, will they honor her sacred? No? She's the kind of woman who feels like silence. Not the awkward kind, the sacred kind. Her presence slows the room down without asking. Because she's not scattered, she's here, fully, gently, unapologetically present. Jung saw presence as a gateway to the unconscious. It's not just attention, it's communion with what lies beneath. And that's what she practices. Not control, but communion. With her breath, with her body, with what life is asking now. Because she knows the now is where all truth lives. She no longer rushes through mornings like emergencies. She wakes up, slowly, sensing, listening. Even the coffee is a ritual, warm, deliberate, alive. Because how you do the little things reveals your inner state, and she wants every detail to echo her soul. She's not obsessed with productivity. She's committed to presence, because busy isn't the same as alive, and she's done measuring her worth in tasks completed. Now she measures it in moments felt. That shift changed everything. In conversation, she gives more than her words. She offers her full attention, her eyes, her energy, and people feel seen, not scanned, but seen. because she's not waiting to speak. She's listening to understand. That kind of listening heals. She knows when to step back and breathe. When tension rises, she doesn't fight it. She observes it. Where is this in my body? She asks. That question alone can disarm anxiety, because awareness melts what resistance hardens. Presence is her boundary with chaos. The world might be spinning, but she's anchored. Even in crisis, she returns to the breath, not as a performance, but as a practice. And that's why people trust her. Calm, she walks, like someone who's tasted stillness. No rush, no excess motion. Even her pauses feel intentional. Because she knows, life responds to the energy we bring. And hers says, I'm not chasing, I'm aligning. She makes space for the unseen, for intuition, for signals the mind can't catch. Because in presence, symbols speak louder than logic. Jung called these moments messages from the unconscious, and she treats them with reverence. Sometimes her presence is uncomfortable for others, because most people aren't used to being met fully. They flinch when they can't hide. But she offers no judgment, only still reflection. And that reflection reveals more than words ever could. She doesn't distract herself from herself anymore. No more constant noise, scrolling, escaping. Now silence is her sanctuary, because in stillness she remembers who she is, and that memory strengthens her core. She finds joy in the ordinary, a breeze, a shared glance, a flicker of candlelight, because she's not waiting for big moments to feel alive. She finds the divine in the daily. That's the miracle of presence. People ask, how are you so grounded? She smiles, because it wasn't always like this. She used to run too, from herself, from the now, until she realized the present isn't scary, absence is. So, she chose to return again and again, and now her life has a different rhythm, one of softness, depth, awareness. She doesn't just pass through time, she inhabits it, and that inhabiting is magnetic. But presence is only the beginning of her power. So now you've seen it. These aren't just habits. They are soul agreements, choices that a mature woman makes over and over again, even when no one is watching, because real magnetism isn't loud. It's deep, it's quiet, and it's unforgettable. But let me ask you something. Which of these habits do you already carry? And which ones are still sleeping inside you? What would change if you began living from your center, not from expectation? And what would happen if you stopped dimming your depth just to feel accepted? Let this video be more than information. Let it be a mirror. If it touched something in you, speak it. Leave a comment. Share your reflection. Let your voice echo here. Because other women are watching, waiting for a truth that sounds like theirs. And if this made sense to you, if it made you feel seen, then you belong here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and continue this journey with us, one insight, one awakening at a time. Your soul is welcome here.